Welcome to Numb Bills Fan Podcast. If you don't already, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, anywhere you find your podcast. Don't forget, numbbillsfan.com has all of our content. Welcome to Numb Bills Fan Podcast, episode number 134. I'm your host, David Palermo. As always, as you heard, find me on Twitter everywhere at Numb Bills Fan, as you heard in the intro. And numbbillsfan.com has all past episodes. Please subscribe everywhere. And as always, don't forget Grandstand Sports Network, playing regularly all the time with other podcasts involved as well from around the country. And grandstandsportsnetwork.com has gotten me and my buddy Kevin Massare, who is on the line in a second, on the sidelines, and a couple other people. So it's been nice to get a first great, best view in sports, as you would say, for the Buffalo Bills. And also brought to you by punchdrunksports.com. Their website is launching very, very soon with a bunch of sports podcasts brought to you by comedians, and I am the official podcast for the Buffalo Bills, Numb Bills Fan Podcast. So thank you to those guys over there. Ari Shafir, the comedian, has a special called Double Negative out on Netflix. Please check that out. Also, Sam Tripoli has a new conspiracy theory podcast, which is pretty good. And don't forget to check out Punch Drunk Sports Podcast themselves. And Jason Tebow is also on there, and it's hilarious. They just had Steve Renazizi on from the league, if you remember him. Great show. And so on the line with me now, I have Kevin Massare from cover1.net and also Locked On Bills podcast, which is also part of the Grandstand Sports Network. So shout out to Eric Turner for doing all the great work and always letting me, hit him up for information any time of day. So what's up, Kevin? How you doing, man?
What's going on, Dave? Doing well today. How are you?
I'll be honest. I've praised this coaching staff. They sucked me in, this Buffalo Bills coaching staff. And, all of a sudden we have a lot to talk about, which kind of thought was
it's that time of year. Come Labor Day, lots to talk about, as always. It gives us great material, Dave. It
really does. And I mean, I got to say, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan or even an outsider looking in, you're wondering, are the Bills tanking? Are the Bills tanking? Are the Bills tanking? And I mean, it's every single person that the Bills have cut, which if you don't know, the Bills have just cut Jonathan Williams, who was, I believe, the Bills' 5th round pick 2 years ago.
That's right.
And, he's a promising player. In fact, even on a John Murphy show, they were talking about he could be better than Mike Gillislee. Then next thing you know, he's cut. And now we're hearing, we didn't play special teams. Well, my bullshit meter goes off, Kevin. And I think, okay, I don't know shit, but I do know you have players in the locker room who are tight with the coach, like Mike Tolbert, who's in that running back room. Are you telling me that somebody's not buying in or doing something is initially my who fucked up radar? Somebody got caught smoking weed, somebody caught whatever. You know what I mean? This team is like really like weird. You know what I mean?
It's a weird situation right now. Here's how I put it. We'll start with the top with Jonathan Williams, and honestly, Dave, here at Numb Bills Fan, you're going to get some of my first takes on a lot of this. So to the listeners out there, we'll be going live here on Numb Bills Fan with a lot of my first early roster takes before I actually go live on Locked On Bills later in the week. But the first thing I can notice is the team got worse. Okay, so it's very tough to do to go from your initial 53 man cuts, make about 5 moves, which you're supposed to get better at. I would say 99% of the time when you make 5-6 moves post cuts, you're doing 5 or 6 moves to get better. The Bills didn't get better. The Bills got worse. They got worse with their picks. I'm not sure what their end game was, and regardless of Jonathan Williams getting picked up by another team or not, it doesn't really matter. He will be picked up. It doesn't need to be claimed on waivers. Someone might want him on their own contract or on their own terms. So until I see him not playing football for a few weeks, then we can comment. But at least for purposes of today, I'm going in thinking he's going to get signed within the next week.
Can I hit you with that rebuttal on it, and we can close the Williams chapter on there? Sure. Excuse me. I honestly think that Jonathan Williams, the deal with Jonathan Williams is it doesn't matter to them where he came from, clearly. And if you're really not playing special teams, you're really not contributing, I guess it doesn't matter. And I think what they're trying to do here, the Bills, is really there's a couple things where you have guys on the team like Mike Tolbert. He's a leader on the team as far as like seniority. He was brought in pretty much probably to be, hey, what's up? Maybe this works out, yada, yada, yada. You also have other guys like Lorenzo Alexander on the team, another leader guy. You had Tyrod Taylor in the offseason guiding this team. And I think that this regime would rather just clean house like we've talked about for years, which they haven't done in a long time, which I'm not a fan of personally. I like to keep as much quality talent as you can. I mean, if you're playing like Madden Ultimate Team, you have an overall team rating or even Madden. Like, I want my overall team an 86, not a 79. But at the same time, Kevin, I think the most important thing to this regime and this coaching staff and general manager is who's here to play ball and come to work. Because if you're not, get the hell out of here. We don't care who you are. And we'd rather have 11 guys doing everything they can to do the right thing and have the highest chance of doing the right thing than finding out that dudes may be late to a meeting or some bullshit like that. And unless you're Marcel Darius, where you're getting paid Brinks trucks worth of money, you're getting paid Floyd Mayweather money for the season, like, you're going nowhere. So you're kind of stuck with him. But you get my point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to continue on your point, it's interesting because now you either have to take the coach at face value when he says there was no issues, he did everything he could, he bought in, he's a great guy, had a great camp. Sure, everyone's meter goes off, but then your coach is standing up there lying through his teeth, which isn't a good look either. So either he's telling the truth and he just cut him because he straight up doesn't think he's better than Joe Banyard, or he's lying through his teeth and something did happen, which would backfire on him though, Dave. All you need is a report to come out in 2 weeks saying he didn't buy into the system, no one liked him, he was arguing with coaches, or he was, participating in some type of activity that the team didn't like. That doesn't sit well. Now you lied to us.
I don't know. I don't think somebody comes out and says that. You know what I mean? Because I think the coach is going to just own it and wish him the best to go on in his career. You know what I mean? This kid is a DWI, so you can only assume.
Right, but would you call saying he's done everything right owning it? He went up there and basically said he was a good player, but we just cut him. He didn't fit the need. Rather than saying there were some issues we weren't able to resolve, he didn't really own it. He kind of didn't own it. He kind of stood up there and said today in his press conference that he's not the right fit for the system, or he isn't a good enough player. Rather than some issue or something else.
I thought I heard also, to piggyback on what you're saying, and to cut you off, even though that's what I do, dude. He really did say, too, along with that, like, we want players who put this team first and yada, 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 and yada. And that's also, I think, a way of saying, hey, everybody, maybe that's like a message to the team right there, which is like, we want guys who want to do what they're told. He does not need to say that. He can just say, look, man, we thought we were doing better in other phases. There's 3 phases of the game, and he did mention that. You know what I mean? And if you're not starting, you got to contribute. I get it. But he did not need to go into that whole thing about, like, doing, being football first guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Off the air, Eric Turner and I from Cover One had a big discussion about what we thought this meant for the team and what we thought happened here. And one of the big things I heard McDermott say today was how much special teams played a role into everything, that, special teams was a factor. There's a third phase to this game. They get Banyard and Tywan Jones help on special teams. Those are special teams players. Mike Tolbert plays special teams. So now you have your 3 backup backs playing special teams. And that's what played a role in this. But, you're going to donate to me 4 or 5 spots that you signed off of waivers today. Or over the last 2 days, I should say. You picked up a 4th tight end in Kyrie Lee that hasn't really done anything in the league. You had to me, the tight end class played pretty well. Clay, O'Leary, and Thomas. I didn't see the need to add a Lee guy, an unknown guy, into the lineup. You signed Joe Webb basically as a quarterback / special teams guy. you didn't have any other purpose for him, especially keeping TJ Yates. I mean, TJ Yates is probably going to be out, but you don't activate more than 2 quarterbacks. So I don't see a situation where Taylor and Yates are both out and you're going Peterman Webb. There's no way. There's no way that happens this week. So you donated another special team spot to Joe Webb. You keep going down you traded for Kalen Clay. You gave up Kevon Seymour, another special teams move. You have Andre Holmes, who's a special teams gunner. You have Brandon Tate, who's a kick returner. We could keep going on, keep going down the defense, and you're having Deion Lacey, the new linebacker, who's a special teams guy. You kept Tanner Vallejo for special teams. You have Trey Elston for special teams. I mean,
this is a special teams roster, it sounds like, and it's like, dude, I got to be honest with you. Is Danny Crossman worth the investment? I don't know, because I'm out there watching this guy coach, and I was backing him up, and I don't want to shred him, but like, dude, how do you have of everybody out there, not to rip on Ross or rip on a player, it's not my style, but the kid is clearly, it looks like he's never fielded a fucking kick in his life, dude. Like, you don't want him as a center fielder on your baseball team or softball team or to catch a deep pass anywhere, because I don't understand how your depth perception is that bad. I was going to yell at him myself, and Crossman's just shaking his head. That's the best you could do. You got to get these guys to block and develop good habits, and the guy can't even catch the ball in a timely manner without turning around. Like, it makes his back should never be to the kicker. Like, What are we doing here?
I don't see the purpose, and I'll go on record here in Numb Bills Fan Podcast. I don't see the purpose of having Brandon Tate and Kalen Clay on the same roster. It does not make any sense. You have Tywan Jones as a backup returner. You have Walter Powell on the suspension list, who you can take off in 4 weeks to use as a returner.
I like Walter Powell, man, by the way.
I don't have any issues, and we can discuss Powell in maybe a couple episodes when it's closer to his suspension being over. But there is zero reason to carry basically the same player. If you liked Kalen Clay and you traded for him, I don't know why you need Tate. I don't see the purpose of having your 4th and your 5th receivers as kick and punt returners as well. Who knows how they're both limited as receivers. And then you have an Andre Holmes, who's a limited receiver, in my opinion, as your 3rd receiver, who's normally a gunner. Oakland was upset to lose him because of his special teams prowess, not because of his receiving ability. So now you have basically 3 of your 5 wide receiver spots donated to the special teams, as well as, to me, everyone but LaShawn McCoy donated on the back system. So you have Mike Tolbert, Joe Banyard, Tywan Jones. Those are all special teamers.
We have
you
a
have
good
Joe
enough
Webb.
offensive line, man, to honestly plug whoever back there. I was a little pissed about Jonathan Williams because I liked him as a player. I want to see him develop.
Yeah, and losing him was a big deal. To me, he was easily the number 2 running back, and to me right now, a number 2 running back, backup running back, isn't as valuable apparently as special teams guys who can be maybe a slight step down in the running department, but add a body on special teams. That's basically what Bean, McDermott, Shane, and Gain, the other executives in the front office, decided to do. They said, you know what? We like Jonathan Williams. As a player, all he can do is play running back. We don't know how he might not be buying into this thing, if that's the report. So we're going to go with Banyard, Mike Tolbert, and Tywan Jones, LaShawn McCoy, and Patrick DeMarco. You have guys 28 and over playing at your back spot. Very interesting decision there to go vet heavy. And then for McDermott to go up there and recognize the fact that there's a compensation formula by cutting Andre Holmes and by cutting Vlad Dukas and by cutting Ryan Davis that could earn him a 3rd-round pick that he said they might entertain. So to me, you went very vet heavy. You kept very limited younger players. Outside of the guys you drafted, you kept like Greg Maben. He's the only other younger player. You practice squadded, to me, some players that I thought would make the team. So, the practice squad real quick is Da'Keel Shorts, Brandon Riley, Jordan Mudge, Marquavius Lewis, BT Sanders, Marcus Sales, Ian Seau, Zach Vigil, Will Parakick, and Michael Pruitt. So you have a pretty solid practice squad that I actually was my favorite thing that they were able to do as a unit, was put together that to me a very solid practice squad, and went really vet heavy on both sides of the ball. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And Brandon Tate, with his limited receptions, is the guy that has the most receptions of any receiver on the Bills staff on the Bills receiver core.
I'll be honest, man. I've told you this before. It's just a hope. I've heard good things about him from Donald Jones talking about him. I always mention that because there's something about being tougher than other people that I really admire. And this dude seems to stay relatively healthy.
Who?
Tate.
Okay. Like Tate.
I like him because I honestly think he's a guy where I think with this offense, it sounds like we're going to see, to Bills fans, more stuff we saw from Chan Gailey, essentially, which is the ball in the hands of guys in space. You know what I mean? We saw a tight end screen this year in the preseason. You know, we saw screens in practices, all sorts of them in practice. And it's like, for Tate, I think he's a healthy addition to what they're trying to do as far as being versatile. And let's be honest, if you're going to be featuring 2 backs, you need 3 good receivers. You don't need something crazy. And here's a theory I want to run by you, not to spin back. We don't have to. But
Sure.
I would like to entertain this to you, conspiracy theory. What if there's a metric, because this will be Crossman's 5th year with the Bills, okay?
Okay.
What if there's a metric where they look at the division and there's some kind of analytical report? Because I'm trying to like fish for ways to justify this special team stuff here, because I do believe in special teams. But let's be honest here. The shit on the wall conspiracy from my end is, what if they did some kind of homework, or Crossman maybe presented something to these guys like, look, I need solid guys here. Here's why. Because we could have had X, 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 and X if I had quality guys who can pick up blacks, quality guys who do put football first, quality guys who do whatever. He's the only one that's been here. And maybe there's a metric where we could say, you know, how you talk about Steve Tasker being a Hall of Fame special teamer for the Bills, and he should be in there, and Peter King and all these guys hammer the table for him, but he doesn't get in, but we get these freaking kickers in. And you know, Marv Levy says famously, like, hey, put on the film. He has changed games on special teams. So what I want to know is, that's the guy that's beloved in Marv Levy, okay? What if the special teams thing really could be a thing for the Bills, but at the same time, it's like, maybe they have, I'm wondering if they have like some kind of metric or stat or something where they're like, look, we think that these special teams are weak. They're, like, I don't know. I mean, how many different schematic ways can you run special teams? I have no clue. I don't know. Right. I'm not a football coach, but I'm just saying, like, could there have been some kind of evidence, and a long story short, evidence presented to maybe the GM or the head coach, like, look, I think if we beef this up, we could actually have an edge in special teams against who we match up this year. I don't know what it is, and it seems like the Bills want guys with big wingspans, and they're going to run 2 tight ends. Like, it's clear what they're going to do.
Right. I mean, to couple that thought, I think that there's some credence to that, you know, he said, I've been here. This is what went wrong in the last couple of years. Basically, my unit was getting penalized every single time down the field because they weren't talented. We didn't put any resources into this unit. And it was still actually, to me, average. I mean, it wasn't poor. It was average. So he basically might have said, look, a team that's built the way we're built, we need to have a special teams game to win games. We need to have a special team. We need to be good on teams and all phases of teams, which they weren't in preseason either. They were not. Let me show you what could happen, how we could, you know, maybe the game is different just by the special teams phase. So he went out and asked for 4 or 5 more roster spots than usual. And that's, to me, what happened. He got 4 or 5 more. The team got worse in depth. I was actually okay with depth at certain positions. And then you go and cut Hodges, who's one of my favorite backup linebackers.
I did not understand that.
No, it didn't make any sense, Dave. I don't know the theory there. He didn't have like a standout stardom preseason. To me, it's like Zach Brown. Like if Zach Brown was on this roster last year, this year, I don't know that McDermott would have kept him. I don't know what they see in some of these special teams players to be able to cut your vet backups, some guys that you're going to need in certain spots. What happens if Humber goes down, Preston Brown goes down, Lorenzo Alexander goes down? I mean, you're playing Matt Milano and Deion Lacey and Tanner Vallejo. That is your backup.
Dude, those draft picks have kind of impressed a little bit.
Milano's been hit and miss to me. He's been better. Tanner Vallejo hasn't even stepped on the field, and Deion Lacey is a converted CFL player into the NFL, trying again in this time around. So,
So if that's the case, then why the hell would they they're loyal to their own picks? You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, that's another thing.
You know what I mean? That they had other staffs had no problem cutting 5th, 6th round picks. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, what? You keep? I don't know, man.
Yeah, they basically stood up there again, just like they did with Jonathan Williams, and said, no, we don't care who picked them, but you do. I mean, the stats are there that you've only kept a certain amount of players from from the other regime. I mean, you can say all you want. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Actions speak louder than words with who you kept. So you absolutely do care with where they came from, what they play, how they play it, who they are as a person. Those were all things that you factored in, which is fine, but they did get worse over the last 24 hours. The first cuts down to 53 on Saturday. No real surprises to me, Dave. Outside of cut and Brandon Riley, maybe Da'Keil Shorts or maybe Jordan Mudge, and throwing them on and kept them on the practice squad anyways. Fine, whatever. No skin off my back. But to do what they did over the last 24 hours by cutting pretty much the only one I wasn't, whatever. If you have some injuries at quarterback, fine, go ahead and cut Cole Anderson for Joe Webb, whatever. That's a fine move. But the other moves, trading for Kalen Clay, and then the other 3 waiver claims with Connor McDermott, with Deion Lacey, and with even the most surprising one to me is Kyrie Lee. You needed a 4th tight end who hasn't really produced in this league. Those are the 4 moves you made. That the team absolutely got worse by releasing the 4 players you did in Kevon Seymour, in Philly Brown, in Jonathan Williams, and in Gerald Hodges. The 4 players we released are absolutely better than the 4 players we claimed. So the team got worse, may have increased a little bit on special teams. The depth took a hit. And that's really, the best way to put it. After the first cuts, everything was kosher. Within 24 to 48 hours later, I thought we made the Joe Webb one. We'll call a wash. The other 4 moves, I thought we got worse in every single one of them almost.
I try to have faith with whatever the Bills do. This, man, and I've been in this Twitterverse since the Terrell Owens days, which ain't super long, but I don't understand getting rid of talent. And At the same time, we've seen guys shred preseason and just not do shit. And honestly, Jonathan Williams was okay last year.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was okay. Well, okay, so he's another year from his injury and that. Whatever, man. Give LaShawn McCoy the damn rock, dude. And honestly, after seeing Nathan Peterman get the ball out quick, let's see what we could do here. And I really believe that if you have guys who are on the same page, we've seen it too many times of teams that you don't know who the hell they are, and they just make it happen. And that's even in football. And we've seen it with the Bills offensively with Fitzpatrick and Steve Johnson and Donald Jones, and you know what I mean? Spiller wasn't good his rookie year. You can't say that. You just had a bunch of guys, dude. And if you're doing what you're asked to do, it's just this coaching staff and regime is just very bold, very bold, very, 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 very bold. And it ain't about if Russ Brandon, I think, was behind this still closer to the Bills than he is now because he's clearly removed. If he was closer, I almost think that these guys wouldn't be allowed to be let go because they are fan favorites. Because fans do have an attachment. And quite frankly, if there's a stink in the air and things like this haven't been done, it tells me that this stink has kind of been going and going and going through generations of players here. So something's got to change. Maybe this is it. Maybe Sean McDermott garnishes respect, and if they go 8-8 this year, it's a win, and you could bring in free agents to build next year, and you have all these picks, yada yada. But I do not understand cutting quality players, very high quality players. I do not understand it, especially when you sign a guy like Holmes, who is not impressed to me at all. I don't know, man. It's what are they seeing in practice that I'm not? Are guys just late bloomers in camp or we're not there? Maybe really special teams is the reason Holmes was brought in the first place.
It was, yeah.
And he says
I see the purpose in that, Dave. I'm not trying to knock the third phase of the game. I think special teams is fairly important. I don't have a problem with it. It's not as important as offense. It's not as important as defense. It's not 1/3. It really isn't. I call it 1/6 because I don't care how good your special teams is. It's not going to make up for a bad offense. Sorry, it's not. But I'm fine with donating players to the special teams role. I really am. But you have 3 receivers and 3 running backs donated. Your skill players are donated to the special teams. Everyone but LaShawn McCoy, Jordan Matthews, and Zay Jones, everyone else was donated to special teams. They're special teams players first that can also play their positions, which I'm okay with, except you don't have anything if one of those 3 goes down, really. If Matthews goes down in a game or Zay Jones has to step out, I mean, you're looking at Andre Holmes and Brandon Tate. I'm sorry, that didn't work out last year. It didn't. So once you lose Matthews or Zay Jones, the receiving core is a mess. It is an absolute wreck. And I don't think bringing in another returner in Kalen Clay is going to do anything at that wide receiver position.
Is there any position or Kalen Clay? Is there anything in your research where there is any upside for him in the receiving game, or like what's the deal with that? Because maybe they think Tate is due for more receiving time, because when I went, maybe that's why they didn't give Tate that many touches in camp. Maybe they wanted him to get reps because he was playing a lot of he was not playing a lot of special teams when I was there, Brandon Tate.
Yeah, he was. And
on kickoffs, he wasn't though. Like it was always raw. So, but in the games, what I'm saying is I wonder if they're trying to work him out more as a receiver, Tate, and develop him. Do you follow me? Because he wasn't that bad when he was in games. If he was targeted, he really wasn't. You know what I mean? Right. And if you're running a screen game, you're going to get these guys, that type of offense, you're going to get these guys into space.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, here's a couple things to know about, Kalen Clay. I mean, this is like his 5th team, I believe. He's played on 5 teams since being a 6th-round pick in 2015. So he does have talent to where he's bouncing around the league, but it's not anyone that you can count on producing on a high level. He has that straight on speed. I mean, that's kind of probably what you're into. That's probably the number one thing he brings. He hasn't played since 2015. He finally had a good preseason this year. I believe going for, let's see what he did in the preseason. He caught about 6 passes for 127 yards. So, I mean, fine preseason by you, Kalen. But he hasn't really been able to stick on a team. He has that straight line speed, and he's a good returner. I don't think you can count on that. I don't think you can count on that receiving ability at this point. So, it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. I think you're really reaching. I don't know what he would bring to the table that your own 2 undrafted free agents wouldn't.
I'm trying to justify something. You know what I mean? I'm trying to justify a reason that they would keep Tate. You know what I mean? I and bringing this specialist return guy. If he doesn't have that much upside as a receiver and they traded for him, I mean, is it really like that important to trade Kevon Seymour? You can't just cut him. Like, what? You don't want to go to New England because he's long? Is that it? I don't know. Like.
I mean, if they were going to make the decision to cut Seymour anyways, and you got a 7th-round pick and a potential player receiver in Clay, whatever, that's not a big deal. I mean, Clay's known to have some lapses in his career, which is an interesting decision by McDermott. I believe he was the guy that dropped the ball on the 1-yard line back in his collegiate days. When he was one of the most famous guys that put the ball on the ground back. He played at Utah, so it would have been in the Oregon game where he kind of flipped the ball down on the 1-yard line instead of just running it in. So that was his first major incident. Got picked because of his speed in the 6th round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they liked that from him. But then he went and fumbled the ball in preseason at times, and then faced a cut by the Baltimore Ravens for a fumble in preseason. So I mean.
Dude, fumbling is weird, man, because you look at a guy like Adrian Peterson. He fumbled so much. And then one season, dude tunes it up. And it's like, I feel sports is a thing, and it's kind of like following sports again in my life as I get older and picked up hockey. I get to try to apply certain logic and pretty much okay, well, if I want to get better at X, I really had to focus on this thing daily and think about this thing just about daily and really make it a thing of focus. And when you're a young kid, sometimes you might be super talented, but not always know how you got there or know your most efficient work system because you haven't applied it outside of football. So this kid might be able to conquer that, but he has to be very driven. And who knows, man? Maybe getting cut again will wake him up. At the same time, I feel it's so early that maybe they know that some dudes are gonna get cut. That maybe they know something. I can't really. I can't think of. I'm hoping that there's more to this. I'm hoping this is prettier. All these roster moves, essentially. Is there any other thoughts you had on the roster moves? I'm stoked on Joe Webb, by the way. Following the Vikings, I really like him. He's very talented. He's smart. He's a good guy in the locker room. I'd rather have him play than TJ Yates. I don't know why TJ Yates is still on the roster. Like, let's get real here.
That's a big one to me. Is I don't care. I don't know why Yates is still on this roster. I think it might have to do with something with salary to cutting him for injury reasons. I don't think you see Yates and Webb both be on this roster. So one or the other will end up leaving this roster, hopefully Yates, when it's all said and done. I don't mind Connor McDermott. He's a 6th-round pick from the Patriots. Tackles are hard to come by. If you're going to develop him, keep him inactive and see what you're working with out of him. So that's okay with me. He wasn't very good in the Senior Bowl, but that's kind of why he fell to the 6th round. So we'll see what we have in McDermott as a backup left tackle option, especially while Henderson's out. I see Henderson coming back and taking that roster spot. Us trying to cut McDermott and maybe putting him on the practice squad. I see something like that going on there with him. Other than that, any of the other roster pickups to me, once again, I said it a couple times, Kyrie Lee kind of shocks me. Not really sure what he brings to the table. Has to be more of a blocking tight end. He's bounced around again, Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and back-to-back years. He's caught one pass in this league playing 24 games, so he's got to be a blocking tight end, which I guess is fine. But you have Nick O'Leary who can block, Charles Clay who can block. I guess Logan Thomas is a receiver. Outside of that, I don't see anything in Deion Lacey either. I haven't liked his footage from what I've seen loosely, seen. So, that's kind of where we're at.
So now, why did Connor McDermott get cut? He's 6'8", 305. That's a big man.
I just don't think they had room for him on the roster.
Is this maybe a McDermott?
I would bet New England was trying to sneak him through to the practice squad like we've done in the past.
Dude, I like that pickup. You're talking UCLA. Their quarterback's very nice. So,
Yep. Interesting one. I don't mind the pickup there. That one I'm okay with. I'm okay with Joe Webb. Kalen Clay to a lesser extent, but the other two are mind blowing to me. I do not see why they made the move for Deion Lacey
I don't know, man. Deion Lacey, if you're playing in the CFL, you're playing on a bigger field. There's a lot of athleticism there. There's a lot of I think he's got to have good hips. If he's got 3 picks, and you know what I mean, that's not bad for 3 seasons in the CFL.
There's
you know what I mean?
of,
like, dude, they gotta. He sounds like more.
It's going to be hard to beat Gerald Hodges to me. I don't even.
They got to have a plan. There's got to be something. I don't like. Why would you cut Hodges? He looked promising.
I still think it goes back to the special. There's 2 reasons. It goes back to special teams to me. He even said, watch the press conference. He goes back to special teams numerous times throughout about these players. Fine. So you're going to upgrade your special teams unit. The other reason could do with salaries, Dave. If you're not on your week 1 roster as a veteran, your salary isn't guaranteed. So the second you make a week 1 roster, which I believe is Wednesday, I don't know if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, what officially qualifies you as making the team. Your salary as a veteran over 4 years is guaranteed. So even for the year, it's guaranteed for the 1 year you're playing in. So if you cut TJ Yates prior to Wednesday, he's getting paid anyways from now on. So, after Wednesday, he's going to get paid. So that's what makes it difficult when you're keeping these guys. So something to consider is by cutting Hodges, now his salary isn't guaranteed. So you can bring him back in week 2 and continue to, flip him on and off the roster if you so choose. So there could be some salary games going on. I don't really see what he was already on a vet minimum. So the $700K, I'm not sure why that's grinding you up, but those are some things to consider beside the fact that they just went special teams heavy. There's limited way around that they made decisions based on their special teams unit. They wanted to get better there. They wanted to prevent the penalties. That's what was in their mind because it had nothing to do with Rex Ryan, the penalties. It has to do with the players on your special teams unit where they were receiving a vast majority of their penalties, as well as defense, who they've also turned over. They've kept a lot of the offensive players because they're more talented. But they flipped over those two units. Pretty much the special teams unit in full is flipped, and the entire defensive back unit is flipped. The linebacking core, depending on what you say about Humber, I mean, that's half flipped, and the defensive line's really the only thing you kept intact, but you rotated a couple of backups. So, I mean, you kept the majority of the front seven, honestly. You flipped the entire secondary, and you flipped the entire wide receiving core, but you kept
I'm really looking forward to it, I think, the more you talk about it, because in this scheme, we have a smart front seven, okay? And I really believe in this scheme with the corners. If you're playing more of a cover three, your corners don't have to be as talented as your top corners that you talk about. So it's like that offers you salary cap wise to allot that more towards other positions that cost more money. Does that make sense? Like your specialist. It kind of helps playing that scheme, helps free up money to afford a guy like Darius. It's really really smart, because I honestly think that like linebackers, you can always pick them up, and they're always a dime a dozen. That's what they say, and it's like the safety positions become more of a premium. And I don't know. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all shakes out, and I think that the cornerbacks are going to be more promising than we think. I'm not really worried about losing Darby too much, to be honest with you. I'm not really. Stephon Gilmore, I don't know what his deal was. When you start showing you don't want to play football anymore, I don't know how serious that can take you, and I don't know. So nothing we could do about it. It's not on the team anyways. The one question mark I have is, how was Kevon Seymour developing with the new scheme? That's the thing I want to know. And at the same time, he missed a lot of camp.
Right.
So
that's basically what McDermott and Leslie Frazier specifically said, was he missed a lot of camp. We weren't able to see a ton of them. This was the move we made. So I do think it has to do with that, Dave. He was not on the field. This coaching staff has put a precedence on if you're healthy or not. So a lot of the moves we've seen are players that have stayed healthy or stay healthy throughout their career. We don't have any injuries going in except the two weird concussions, or the three weird concussions now, with Worthy, Tyrod Taylor, and TJ Yates. Outside of the three people in concussion protocol, we don't really have another injury on this roster. So that's a plus, Dave. You have pretty much your full defense at your, right there at your full. That you have them ready to go. On your offensive side, I mean, you're missing your two quarterbacks, and I think Tyrod Taylor's going to be ready to go. What do you think for week one?
Dude, I was just thinking that. I was going to be like, man, what does Kevin think about this? Are the Bills playing games with us, Kevin, where they're going to say, oh, man, we're not sure. Hey, man, we're not sure.
I don't even care they're playing the Jets. I think they're still practicing this game. They know that the Jets don't really, it's the Jets. They're the worst roster in the NFL right now.
It's also the Bills, okay? I'm sorry. Don't tell me that. This team beats Green Bay, then goes to Oakland the next game and just literally shits on itself, 5 years ago or something. Remember that?
Mario Williams about three now.
Yeah, so I don't, dude, no way. But you gotta play these stupid games, dude.
I never said you didn't. I'm more saying that their roster, nothing to do with the Bills. The Jets roster is the worst roster in the NFL. Nothing to do with the Buffalo Bills, or nothing to do with anyone else other than the Jets themselves. That's a very poor roster.
You know what I'm nervous about, dude? You know what I'm really nervous about? And I really don't like it, and I've never really said it on this podcast. I don't know why the hell there's even a competition with Vlad Dukas and John Miller. It's like, we talk about this sport, we talk about sports in general, about having some kind of chemistry and cohesion, and let's get the offensive line together. And every year I hear a report from Chris Brown, it's going to be the first time we're getting the line together. And it's like, man, I understand you want to turn up the heat and you want to have competition and see where everybody's focus level is and all this bullshit. But damn, if you take away what this offensive line did well in the run game for the last 2 years, I'm going to be really pissed off. Like, really pissed off. Because I'll be honest, I don't think that Jets defensive line is anything really to sneeze at. It's fucking not bad. So,
I mean, defensive line, are you talking just, I mean, remember they run a 3-4, so.
Dude, I'm talking like anything they do up front with the Bills making changes. Those guys have played in that system for a few years defensively, okay? So when I'm looking at things, I'm looking at it like this, is if they're changing up schematically what the Bills are asked to do on the offensive line, I just hope it all gels, especially with the Cordy Glenn, who has not had many reps at all. So
well, don't forget you only have about 3 players on that defense that have been there now. So I wouldn't call that a limited turn. I mean, they have basically Muhammad Wilkerson.
Dude, the guy's a monster.
Yeah, he is.
You know what I mean?
Easily their best. Him and Leonard Williams both have been there.
Eric Wood's rated a 70 in Madden, dude. That's what the world thinks about Eric Wood at center. And we think he's great. And I think he's solid. You know what I mean? But at the same time, dude.
I mean, he's coming off a major injury. Madden's already weird with their ratings, but you only have a couple of guys that have been in this Jet system. They just traded one of their best players in Sheldon Richardson.
That's true. That's true. That guy was the next wrecking ball, and I always wanted him to be.
Look at their linebacking core; it's not as good as it usually is. You know, you have a rookie 5th-round pick starting in Dylan Donahue. You have Darren Lee, their 1st-round pick last year, who wasn't very good. Demario Davis, who's very long in the tooth. And Jordan Jenkins, those are their starting 4. That's not a good linebacking core for running a 3-4. Mo Wilkerson's very good, and Leonard Smith is good. So you're going to have 2 really good gapping presence there, 2 gappers. And then Steve McClendon's their nose tackle. So that's an okay unit. You're starting 2 rookie safeties in Jamal Adams and Marcus May.
That's true. I mean, okay, Kevin, I'll give it to you. The Bills should win, but how about this? Let's leave it at that. I'm going to let you go. You go to sleep. It's 10:20. I'm going to upload this now. And if you're down for a last-minute phone call again, dude, we'll just preview the game. I would love to talk to you about it because I have a lot of thoughts on it that I want to go into. Because I want to break it down matchup-wise. And the lines is where I always like to start when it comes to stuff because we see the Bills. I love watching who the Bills go up against. And I'll never forget when the Bills got Mario Williams and some, 7th-round pick who the Bills eventually had on their team last year or something. Remember Mario Williams crying? I didn't know you could hold. Remember that? Their first game with the Bills. It was against the Jets, and he was crying after he got paid $100 million, and he couldn't get by him. And ever since then, I've kind of paid attention to the matchups on the offensive line and the defensive line. I think it's if you get that set, whoever dominates that, I mean, you're opening up the game. So,
right.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And by the way, what do you got coming up? You got a podcast coming. When can we tune into you?
Yeah, just checked out Locked On Bills. We're running stuff all week. If you want to tune in, we'll run a show tomorrow. We'll run a show Friday, and probably either Saturday or Sunday. So, Locked On Bills brings you at least 3 per week. So check me out there. That's basically what I'm, working on fully over at Cover One is their Locked On Bills project. Pretty much catch my new depth chart out at Cover One. I update that frequently. So if you're wanting to know follow along with what we're talking about, go to cover1.net and click depth chart. All this is there with player profiles right to NFL.com. So you can kind of, see who we're talking about. Other than that, I'll be at the game Sunday and I hope to run into you, Dave.
Yeah, dude. Where do you sit?
I'm in the rock pile.
Okay.
This year. So I'm in 200 flat.
I'm in 331. So if you want to come say hi, row 6.
Okay.
Well, all right, buddy. Well, Kevin, thank you as always for coming on and making my life easier by talking to me. So thank you for correcting me on some things because I don't know anything, as always. So you have a good night, all right?
Give yourself some credit, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. All right. Well, that was Kevin. Again, thank you, everybody, for listening. Keep your heads up with the Bills. Have a couple more podcasts coming up before the game, so please tune in. Got some big plans this week. It's game week. Let's get the season rolling with the NFL. Get some more NFL talk in there. I'd like to touch on what's going on with Ezekiel Elliott. Kind of crazy. His suspension could actually be kind of postponed, like Tom Brady. So I'd like to dive into that. Also, have some thoughts on fantasy football. I just did a 16-team fantasy draft, and a little preview. I drafted Charles Clay and Marquise Goodwin, if you're wondering, and I will dive into that. Why? Well, hit me up on Twitter at NumbBillsFan. Ask me why. If you want to talk fantasy football, I will talk to you about it all the time. I'm only doing one league. I've done up to 5 at a time. So don't forget, NumbBillsFan.com has everything. I have an Etsy store up there if you'd like to support. I have a limited run of shirts. Also, there's some Bills memorabilia up there too that I have gathered over the years that I'm just listing. So if you'd like, you could buy it. I have a extra large Super Bowl Bills. Drawing a blank on the image. I think it's Super Bowl. I don't remember, but I have an extra large crew neck Bills Super Bowl shirt going up there soon. So, it's actually a Bills AFC Championship shirt. So, okay. Anyways, punchdrunksports.com. Go on there. Follow them on Twitter at punchdrunk. And thank you, as always, to grandstandsportsnetwork.com. Check out the other podcasts on it, like Rock Power Report. I love Drew. He is so funny. He's a great dude. I got to get him on here so he can just blow up my freaking wave files. All right, take care. I'm David Palermo, your host here, who talks to himself. And this has been Numb Bills Fan Podcast, number 134. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And if you like it, please subscribe. Any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, find me everywhere. Check me out on Instagram. I'm very active there, too. Ciao.